Thank you for attending this virtual meeting of the Scrutiny Committee. For those who aren't aware, I am Councillor David Howarth and I'm the chair of the committee. Please note that this is an audio and video meeting. It's being recorded and the stream will also be live on YouTube. The web address for this is displayed on the council's website. Members are asked to keep their microphone on mute and only unmute when they wish to speak. The cabinet member and officers will present the report and I will then invite panel members to ask any questions. If any committee members wish to speak, you should unmute your microphones and say your name or use the raise your hand feature and I will then invite you in order. If the technology fails, then I will adjourn the meeting for several minutes and try to resolve the issue. Or if this is not possible, a new date and time will be organised. Please can I ask all members to confirm that they can see, hear and speak before the meeting begins. And I'll call out each member alphabetically. Councillor Jackie Alty.
I can hear and speak.
Thank you. Councillor Matt Campbell.
Yes, Chair, I can hear and speak also.
Councillor Colin Coulton.
Yes, Chair.
Councillor Mal Donoghue. I believe we may have apologies, actually. Councillor Michael Green.
Confirmed, Chairman. Good evening, everyone.
Councillor Chris Lomax. Councillor Chris Lomax.
Yeah, I can confirm, I can hear and see.
Right, thank you. I believe Councillor Jim Marsh has sent his apologies. Councillor Colin Sharples.
Yes, Chair, I can hear and see.
Councillor Stephen Thilborn. I believe we may have apologies there as well. Councillor Matthew Trafford.
Yeah, all good, thanks, Chair.
Councillor Karen Walton.
Yes, I can hear and see you.
Thank you. Our officers tonight are Darren Cranshaw, who's the Assistant Director of Scrutiny and Democratic Services, and Charlotte Lynch, our Democratic and Member Services Officer. Our guests this evening include Councillor Paul Foster, the Leader of the Council, Councillor Bill Evans, who's the Cabinet Member for Planning, Regeneration and City Deal, Councillor Matthew Tomlinson, the Cabinet Member for Finance, Property and Assets, Gary Hall, the Interim Chief Executive, and Jonathan No, Director of Planning and Property. So item 1 on the agenda is apologies for absence. I have Councillor Will Adams. Do we have any other apologies?
Chair, we also have Councillor Jim Marsh.
Do we have apologies from Councillor Thirlbourne?
We've not been notified of any, Chair.
Right, okay. In the absence of any others, do we have any declarations of interest?
Yes, Chairman. Chairman, could I declare personal non-pecuniary interest as a cabinet member at Lancashire County Council in general, because there are some items that may touch across the councils, but in particular in relation to item 7, I sit on the South Ribble Partnership for that. So for that item only, I will leave the meeting completely.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any other declarations of interest? In which case, if we can move on to item 3, which is the minutes of the meeting of Tuesday, the 11th of February 2020, which was the Scrutiny Committee meeting. Could we have a mover for those, please? If somebody could move the minutes, please.
Yes, I'll move the minutes.
Thank you. I suspect we had a seconder there as well. So can we all agree those?
Yes, Chair.
Yes, yes, Chair.
Agreed. Thank you. That takes us to item 4, minutes of the meeting of Thursday, the 13th of February, Scrutiny Committee meeting. If I could have a mover for those.
I'll move that one, Chair.
Thank you. If they're seconded.
I'll second that, Chair.
And if we can agree those.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Item 5 is the minutes of the meeting of Monday, the 23rd of June, which is the Scrutiny Budget and Performance Panel. If a member of that panel could possibly move those.
I'll move those.
Yes, I'll move those, Chair.
Thank you. I'll take that as moved and seconded and agreed. Item 6 is matters arising from previous Scrutiny Committee meetings. Does anybody have any matters arising from any of those meetings?
Yes, Chair, if I may, please.
Yeah.
So at the bottom of page 16, there's a reference to the Scrutiny Committee requesting a copy of the audit findings on the review of leisure centres, etc. We were promised a copy of that report, if my memory serves me correct, by the Leader of the Council. We still haven't received that report. And this grid makes reference to it's not being accepted or not accepted, as the case may be. So I just want an update on that, please, and when we will receive that report.
Okay, could somebody help us with that?
Chair,
Good evening, Chair.
Just,
Sorry, Darren.
Chair, I was just going to say that that report would be provided at the appropriate time. The recommendation was that information would be provided at the appropriate time. I don't believe we're at a stage to be able to share that information at the moment, unless anyone else on the call is able to provide more of an update.
Councillor Foster, would you like to come in?
Yeah, Chair, as far as I'm concerned, the audit was published in the governance papers in the annual governance statements review of the meeting about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, maybe a bit longer. I do apologise it's not been sent to the Scrutiny Committee members, but it is in the public domain. Darren, can you please arrange to send it out to all the members of the Scrutiny Committee? But it's within the governance papers, Chair. I do apologise.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other matters arising?
Yeah, am I right to come in, Chair?
Yes.
I thought I didn't make a note of the page, sorry, but I know it's point of the different points on there. It was 25.8, and on there there was reference to mental health support provision and youth engagement, and on that wasn't completed. So I was just wondering if we can expect an update anytime soon on that.
Again, can we have any information on when we might expect an update?
Hello, Chair. It's me again. As far as I'm aware, and I do apologise if I'm not correct about this, but those particular issues that Councillor Trafford has raised have been incorporated specifically into the corporate plan review that's underway, and they'll be specifically referenced as well, Matthew. The chief exec sat with me now and he's put his thumb up. So what we've done, we've taken that and we've actually incorporated it into the corporate plan review, which will be going to the Scrutiny Committee hopefully in the next within the next 4 weeks. Hopefully that answers the query, Chair.
Okay, is that okay, Councillor Trafford? I think you put a thumbs up there, so yes, I'll take that as you're satisfied with the answer. In which case, if we could now, sorry, do we have any other matters arising before I move on? If that's a general silence, then if we can move on to item 7, which is the South Ribble Partnership update, and I'll invite the Leader of the Council, Councillor Paul Foster, who we've already just met, and the Chief Executive, Interim Chief Executive Gary Hall, to present the item and then answer any questions. So over to you.
Thanks, Chair. Good evening, Chair. Good evening, committee members. On behalf of the Chair of the Partnership and its members, I'd like to thank the Scrutiny Committee for enabling us to send this short update on our progress to date. We're intending to come back to you in January of next year to provide a further fuller update with details of all our outcomes and impact. However, at this point, we wanted to share with you how the Partnership has responded to the impact of COVID-19 and how that will affect the delivery of the community strategy. I'm really pleased at how the Partnership has been agile to respond and adapt its plans, and the way it works to support each of our other organisations, as well as focusing on our communities and some of the most vulnerable people in our neighbourhoods. Having an established partnership has made it much easier to respond and develop models to support the recovery. For the time being, the leaders of the Executive Board will meet jointly, whilst the Community Recovery Task Group will take forward delivery of the Community Recovery Action Plan, supported by delivery-focused subgroups. Many of the areas of the community strategy address challenges and issues that existed prior to COVID, but as a result of the pandemic, some of those challenges have become more stark whilst presenting an opportunity to learn and fast-track new ways of working and attitudes towards general collaboration. As a result, we have reviewed the action plan to deliver the community strategy, and you'll see in the report that we have been able to align existing areas of work, such as the integrated team, ReferNet and time credits, to supporting community recovery. In addition, a new work stream that focuses on identifying people who are digitally excluded will address the impact of inequality and access to our services, but in a way that seeks to provide the practical support and tools to do this digitally. A key part of the partnership's plans includes working with the council on developing and sustaining the great work of the South Ribble Together Hub that has been on the front line supporting those residents most in need. Working with partners to triage support and not just address a presenting issue, but contributing factors will go a long way in supporting early action and provide the local mechanism for people to access professional support, particularly around debt, housing and employment. Over the next few months, we will monitor activity closely and evaluate both the outcomes for residents and how our approach might influence longer-term partnership working. And given that, Chair, I'm now open with Gary to any questions you may have on the report. Thank you.
Okay, many thanks. I think you alluded to what the partnership has been doing to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic. Is there anything you've actually learned for the future coming out of this?
We've learned all sorts, Chair. We've learned all sorts. I think we're more engaged now with our local community, not just the council, but all our partner organisations than we ever have been. And what has been pleasing is that at times, and I'm one of these people that's done this, is you sometimes see partnerships as being talking shops and ideas rather than actually delivering results on the ground. And what we've seen from the pandemic is actually the South Ribble Partnership is very, very effective at supporting our community, and that's been particularly pleasing. And we are taking not just the partnership, but also the council, all the best elements of that. And we discussed it last night in governance, if you remember, about the rebranding of the neighbourhood community hubs. And we're going to take that engagement we have with our communities and keep us at the forefront. And I think it's really important that we do that moving forward, because there's going to be tough times in the next 2 or 3 years, particularly for a number of people. So yeah, it proves, I'm pleased that the model has been proven to work with all our partners.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lomax, I think you might want to follow up on that.
Yeah, just give me a moment with that. Excuse me. Page 20, paragraph 6. Please, could you talk us through the partnership's response to COVID-19?
I don't know. It's Gary, do you want to jump in here? Where'd you start? Goodness me.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously the kind of hub model. Sorry, I think I'm muted. Yeah. So let's turn this off.
Actually, sorry, I could hear you okay there, but turning the sound up has given you a bit of an echo.
Right. Is there still an echo?
No, you're coming through
okay.
clear enough.
So again, just in terms of the response and the hub response, clearly there were a number of issues that were affecting people, particularly those who were shielded. The focus has been on those who were shielded, those who are medically shielded. And obviously they require support in a number of areas. So access to food, access to medicines, access to support services like dog walking, etc., etc., etc. And for those that are unshielded and those who are experiencing hardship, particularly around financial hardship, that has required a kind of partnership response. So what you've seen is a number of partners stepping into to deal with some of the issues, coordinated through the hub, admittedly, but partners like schools, social housing providers, voluntary groups, etc., etc., looking to support the most needy in their community. And I think that's been the main focus of the attention of the partnership during this phase. Councillor Foster quite rightly said that actually, you know, as we move into the next phase, it's going to be different. So we've learned a lot about our communities. We've learned a lot about some of the challenges that individuals face, those that are shielded and those that are not shielded, but have particular issues that need to be dealt with. Through the data that we've collected, through the conversations and the contacts that we've had. So the council actually did most of the contacts to those people who required help. We've gathered information, intelligence, and all those kinds of things. So as we move forward, the challenges are going to be different. So those immediate issues of access to medicines, access to food, etc., etc., they're diminished somewhat. And have become the norm. Some people have gone back to a bit of normality, can support themselves. But as we move forward, the issues of financial sustainability for individuals, access to employment, you know, mental health issues that was mentioned by Councillor Trafford as we ease the lockdown. There'll be all these latent issues that start to come to the fore. So the benefit of the very rapid response that the partnership has made is that those relationships are built now, the solid foundations for the partnership, and we'll really have to work hard collectively. And we've got some really good partners in the room who are committed to working collaboratively, kind of identifying what the priorities are as we move forward in relation to the impact of COVID and coming up with action plans to deal with it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Matt Trafford, I believe you wanted to come in here.
It's all right now, thanks, Chair. Both Gary and Councillor Foster have covered both of those already. The points I'm going to
make. Okay, thank you. Councillor Colin Coulton.
Thank you, Chair. Page 20 again, paragraph 7. The first line refers to the focus is now on a collaborative approach. Could you just elaborate a little bit on that? And so how does this differ from what it was prior to COVID-19?
Yeah, okay. So, good question, Colin. So, prior to COVID-19, those partnerships were being developed. So, the council had taken quite some time to develop its community strategy, engaging with partners in that. We were really just starting to get into the delivery phase. So everybody, all the partners had signed up to the delivery of the plan. The reality, Colin, is that in partnership work, the key to success is relationships. Yeah, I know that might sound bonkers, but actually that's where you get the most bang for your buck, where you've got really solid relationships with partners. You've got one common goal, and you can work together to achieve some of the things you want to achieve. And those relationships have had to be formed really quickly over this period. So we've now got new contacts. We've now got new confidence in each of the partners. Actually, they can deliver things. They've got some confidence in the council as well. That actually, you know, we are committed to these things. We can demonstrate that we can add value to some of the things that we're doing. And those relationships are built. So the foundations are there now to take it forward. So it's probably just moved us quicker than we would otherwise have done. So a really good example of this, Colin, would be where you're identifying individuals who have maybe certain needs in a community. There's always been lots of issues around data transfer and data sharing, you know, and it's been a massive blocker to actually collecting the information you need to be able to help an individual. All that's gone away. There are still safeguards in place, so we're not saying it's a free for all, but actually arrangements are now in place for sharing data. That would have took 12 months normally. So all the things have been put in place. Some of the building blocks have been put in place during this period to make us work more effectively moving forward.
Good.
Okay. Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Councillor Jackie Olty.
Okay, thank you. On page 20, paragraph 9, thematic groups have been established to focus around core areas of the action plan. How do these thematic groups work? How is duplication avoided and their effectiveness measured?
Let me just get the page.
Yeah.
I think Howard's on.
Howard's on the call, yeah.
He's probably best placed to answer that one.
Hello.
Hi, Howard.
Hi, yes. So effectively, probably the thematic groups were very much focused around core objectives of the partnership, and that was relating to effective partnerships. One was focused around health, others around community. What we will see going forward is the sort of development of the subgroups, which are very much more delivery focused. So in terms of thematic, we're probably moving away from that and moving much towards a delivery and operation model. So we've got one around One Front Door, which is very much around taking forward the South Ribble Together hub and delivering that, and what Gary's just been talking about in terms of that data and information. And how we actually coordinate referrals around. So having all those relationships and those partners actually removes quite a bit of the duplication, because we're then starting to actually collaborate on that together. A good example of this is the digital skills. So looking at a group around digital resilience, which we're taking forward, we're now linked in with the Lancashire Digital Skills Partnership, who are already delivering projects. But what we're added value is that we're able to identify the individuals who can benefit from those schemes, and that provides them with devices and training and support that can get them online and remove some of those barriers. And that has been quite a sort of quick win that we start to take forward and actually scale some of that up and deliver things alongside that with existing frameworks. So having those groups does very much, it gives the space for people to do things, rather than having all the talks and conversations that we'll have at the digital at the larger boards, and then it will enable us to actually deliver things. So they're very sort of effective in terms of a subgroup, or what we used to have as thematic. Hope that helps.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Colin Sharples.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Page 21, paragraph 16 talks about a community recovery task group. Can you tell us which organisations are involved in the community recovery task group?
I don't know whether you want me to come back in on that one. The community recovery task group effectively are the sort of key driving body behind it. So involved in that are the Citizens Advice. We've got Lancashire Digital Skills Partnership. We've got Lancashire Adult Learning. We've got Department of Works and Pensions. The police are involved, so Lancashire Constabulary. Thinking of some of the other organisations in there. We do have so I think Age Concern Central Lancashire, Progress Housing. Yeah, it is actually a cross-sector group. So BAE Systems are on there as well, and it's formed from quite a core group of those partners, the ones that we have really strong relationships with, and it has actually also brought in one of our local GP networks. And that is actually driving forward more works with the social prescribers. Now we've got other work to do with the remaining GP collaborative and network areas, but again that is linking into some of the wider NHS work. So it's got partly a number of partners that will be delivering things on the ground, and others where we will be feeding in to wider strategies, which again limits that duplication of effort.
Thank you, Anthony.
Okay. Could I bring in Councillor Karen Walton, who has indicated she wishes to ask a question?
Yes, please. Good evening, everyone. It's a question on page 20. It's about the health and the implementation of ReferNet. And it says progress was made in supporting organisations to join ReferNet platform. I wondered if you've got any update on how this is progressing, as it's something that, in my mind, was something that would be very advantageous to our residents in South Ribble.
Yes, I can provide a further update on that. So I think to date, we currently have around 30 organisations because there has been more that have been brought online since COVID. So it forms quite an important part of the one front door approach that we're seeking to take, where we're able to triage incoming requests. So say, somebody calls up to say that they'd like to discuss paying their council tax. There may be other issues that are behind that, and using ReferNet as one of those pathways into maybe supporting people around debt advice, benefit, help to claim. There may be other services as well. So it is sort of growing. We've got newer organisations on there. So I think Key, Unlocking Futures, has just joined. We also have Preston Community Transport, which deliver the dial-a-ride services. They've come online. And there are a number of other organisations that they also relate to specific services as well as organisations. So going forward, particularly around the South Ribble Together hub, we're seeking to build that network, and it will link into the integrated team as well. So it will enable quite a wide number of pathways to support the triage.
Good, thank you. Thank you for that update.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Chris Lomax.
Yeah, thank you. Page 21, paragraph 17. What's the role of the Chorley Public Service Reform Board, and how will the board link with South Ribble Partnership?
Chair, it's probably appropriate for me to take that one.
Okay.
So the Chorley Public Service Reform Board is really akin to the partnership. In essence, it's it's a similar model that we use to deliver reform and improvements in public services across Chorley. It's probably been going about 3 years now, and works with similar partners to those that Howard has outlined previously. The interesting thing from a South Ribble and a Chorley perspective is that many of our partners work across the Chorley and South Ribble footprint. So if you take the CCG, for instance, you take the police, they all work across the two footprints. So there are probably opportunities for us, back to the point that some members have made about not duplicating efforts. And this kind of does link in again with the shared service agenda. There is the opportunity for us to see if we can collaborate on a number of things to stop that duplication, and that's something we'll be looking at moving forward.
Okay. If I could now bring in Councillor Colin Sharples, who I believe has 3 questions on the interim action plan.
I do indeed. They're all on page 22, of course. First one is, how have the 3 priority areas been identified? What evidence base is there? What are the links with the council's new business support member working group?
Howard, do you want to come in on that one?
Hi, yes, I can come in on that. So the way that it has been developed has very much been through the work with partners and the intelligence that's been gathered through them. So with the one front door, that is around the type of cases that organisations have been dealing with, having a sense of where there may be some impacts on those services. So that is where their expertise comes in. There is a quite a wide range of information. So again, we've been looking at some of the local DWP data, where we can see that 18 to 24-year-olds universal credit claims have risen sharply. In April, there was a 55.8% increase in universal credit claims in South Ribble. So it begins to provide a flavour of some of the issues. But again, they've got more intelligence around that in terms of what happens when a universal credit claim goes forward. it can actually stop other benefits such as tax credits. So again, that is working with partners to understand some of those systems and where there may have been a reaction to certain issues or elements or packages that have been provided, that they're mitigated. So that's where the one front door area comes in. And again, CAB and probably nationally, there is a prediction to be a huge and significant increase in debt. So at the moment, that there isn't that debt increase. In fact, some of that services, it's not increased, it's kind of tailed off. But that's because at the moment there are various things in place. So what will happen, or what we expect to happen, is that move towards a sort of debt explosion when some of these measures that have been implemented by the government cease. So that's kind of the information we get there. The digital resilience, there has actually been quite a lot of work already done through Lancashire County Council and the Lancashire Digital Skills Partnership, where they've identified a significant sort of cohort, the most at risk being over 50s, who will be digitally excluded. And there are particular heat maps that show those areas, which do align with some of our more deprived areas of the borough when we look at the levels of deprivation. So again, we're utilising some of that data and our own information, and we're going to be developing a set of metrics that will go forward to the board to identify particular areas of focus. The volunteering and community element, again, those have been developed through intelligence, through organisations where there has been a rise in volunteering, and again, a lot of it is unknown, but the concerns actually come around what happens to existing and established volunteering groups who may not have the resources to continue, or again don't have maybe the confidence to continue in a socially distanced environment, and particularly where we see a lot of new community action groups coming up, how that may duplicate quite a lot of what established groups have been doing. So it's very much a proactive stance that the partnership has been taking, and we're actually going to be doing a mapping exercise of community groups. That has already started with sort of looking at some of our key partners and looking at what pressures, what support, particularly some of our smaller voluntary community groups need, and that we can develop the support around that. So again, we're finding information as we go along. We're being led by some of that information, but very much again by partners and their knowledge and expertise, as well as our own.
Excellent, thank you very much.
Welcome.
Just Colin, Chair,
yeah.
Could I just add to that just a second, please? Because there's just to update further. There's a meeting of the leadership board tomorrow, and most certainly because of the COVID pandemic, I would not be surprised when we come back in January with our next update and more detailed update for the committee that these priorities might not change slightly, as you'd expect.
Yeah.
So as Howard has said, that they are very fluid, but please don't be surprised if the priorities don't change. As I think, as I say, we don't know what we don't know yet, but we do know that we've got quite a number of challenges facing us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Also on the action plan, where does the economy and jobs fit in with the work of the partnership?
Sorry, can you repeat that again?
I can, yeah. Where does the economy and jobs fit in with the work of the partnership?
Howard.
Yeah, I can come in on again on that. So if we look at the digital resilience strand, this is where we will actually look to take forward elements around employment. We don't want to duplicate effort, and there is the employment task force. So again, we don't want to move into some of their territory. Now, what we are doing is looking at how through digital we can start to develop new ways of working for people that have been on long-term unemployed. So that's something that we're interested in taking forward. We've got a lot more to kind of develop and scope that. Some of it is really the earlier stages of looking at employment and making people employment ready. So it will be in there, and particularly around supporting people who may have just been made unemployed. That is where the one front door solution comes in, to support and get them into the right services that do provide that level of either education, skills, and support that they may need. But like I say, we don't want to duplicate some of that that will be delivered by other services, and particularly our colleagues within the sort of business and development side.
Thank you. And my third question in this, on the interim action plan, how are the priority areas being resourced? Is there sufficient capacity in place? Are all partners contributing resources?
I think I can, absolutely. It relies on partner commitment. In fact, money isn't really the issue. In terms of resources, cash, it's how we do things differently as organisations within our existing resources. Sometimes there will be, areas where, additional funding will help support and accelerate what we're doing. But we are very much reliant on organisations sitting around the table and providing their officers and support to deliver this. So, when we look at ReferNet, CAB are providing a lot of that already. So they will be actually resourcing part of the one front door through their existing systems and triage processes. So that is something that we can then begin to actually join up with what we've been delivering through the South Ribble Together hub and make a much more sustainable service going forward. And the resourcing within the team, and again the shared services, Gary might want to come in on this, but it does provide us some of that flexibility, and we've got members of the team that are already focused around partnerships and driving forward how our partners contribute.
Okay, does anybody wish to add to that? No. In which case, Councillor Jackie Alty.
Thank you. Page 22, paragraph A. What is the South Ribble Integrated Team?
No, Shred. Howard, do you want me to take that one?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, so the Shrit team. So this again is a kind of a coordination piece where we do case management. So Howard talked about the one front door, and a lot of that is about referring people into other services. Now, in some circumstances, people require more intense support to deal with their particular issues. So the integrated team is a case management team that sources support for individuals who need far more interventions to actually deal with some of their issues. An example of that might be an individual maybe with low-level mental health issues that might be hoarding. So that requires a more proactive approach from environmental health, not thinking about enforcement, but thinking about the source of the issue, working with our colleagues in community services to provide support into that individual to try and deal with the source of their issue. So that's just one example, and that team work on those case management issues.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Colin Coulton.
Thank you, Chair. Page 23, paragraph 19. It mentions a detailed action plan for the activities to carry out the items in item 18. Could you tell me how will the partnership measure the success or otherwise of this action plan to implement the actions outlined?
Chair, again, if I could maybe help with that one. I think Howard did mention this a little bit earlier in his update. So in terms of metrics, they're really still being developed out. So how do we measure success? That's part of the development work that's ongoing. I think, you know, we've got to recognise that actually the partnership is quite new in formation. So it's really taken us a little bit of time just to get right into those the detailed issues that you'd like to see outcomes. I think the key point also to note here, of course, is that following tomorrow's meeting, we might reprioritise some things, and we might measure success differently given the COVID situation. So again, we'll bring that stuff forward in the January update.
Right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. On page 26, there's a reference to the structure. How's the structure been arrived at? How is effectiveness measured? How will the 3 priority areas avoid duplication and make the natural linkages?
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. I think Howard's picked up some of that stuff in his presentation. I'm happy for it. Howard, do you want to just summarise maybe some of the things you said?
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. In terms of how we've come to that, it really is about managing people's capacity. So the leaders and executive board are programmed to meet a number of times a year, and the executive would meet then separately. Now, to manage that capacity, particularly with the way that we're all having to work, we have taken the approach that board will continue to meet as a combined group, and they will meet probably within the calendar. So we've got at least 2 meetings later this year that are already programmed in. The task group almost form that delivery mechanism. So they will be there monitoring and making sure that the 3 subgroups underneath deliver the objectives that have been set around the digital, the one front door, and the communities. So it's very similar to the existing structure, but what it has done is just refocused it more. And the community recovery task group is there to remove any duplication across those groups. So there is quite a lot of crossover and fluidity, and it enables us to be quite agile in the way we respond to things, so that leaders and executive board has the overall control and oversight, but the task group is flexible enough to be able to get on with things rapidly as well.
Okay, thank you. And finally, you'll be pleased to know, when the partnership next presents a progress report in January, what difference do we expect to see?
Goodness me.
That's a killer question.
Goodness me.
Killer question. I'm going to leave the leader to answer that question.
And quite right too.
Thanks for that, Gary. Sorry, there's some feedback here. I do apologise. Is that better?
Yeah.
I can't answer that question, Chair, because I genuinely don't know. But all I can say to you is it's clearly going to be COVID-19 recovery dominated. I expect, and I hate to say this, that in debt is going to be a problem, housing is going to be a problem, unemployment is going to be a problem. All the issues that I think of the mental health is going to be a problem. There's a number of stark challenges facing us as a partnership, as a council. And what I can say to you is I don't know the answer yet, but what I can guarantee you is it'll be the priorities for our local community. It'll be the priorities for the partnership.
Thank you. I'd far rather that you say you don't know than just give us a load of waffle. So thank you for that answer. That was the last question. So we have some recommendations. Darren, could you perhaps read them back to us?
Chair, some of the points that I heard during the session, and obviously members can add or change these, that the committee thanks the leader, chief executive and partnership manager for their detailed report on the progress of the partnership and the detailed way they answered the committee's questions. That the committee commends the partnership for their work supporting our communities during the COVID-19 pandemic. The committee welcomes greater links being made between the partnership and Chorley Public Service Reform Board, and that the committee looks forward to receiving an update in January 2021. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Do we have any other recommendations from members of the committee? In which case, can we agree those?
Yes.
Thank
Agreed,
you.
Chair.
Agreed.
I'll take
Agreed.
Thank you. I'll take that as agreed.
Chair, can I just make one final point? Sorry to interrupt. It's just regarding Councillor Green. I think from my part, and Gary as well, I don't think genuinely, just because Michael's on the board, that he should be restricted from carrying out his duties on the Scrutiny Committee. So I know it's a personal choice he has to make, but if you could just pass on to Councillor Green, we think he's got much to add to these discussions, and we have no issue whatsoever with him as a member of the Scrutiny Committee in January sitting in on it. Genuinely, it's the more the merrier. It's as far as we're concerned, and he's as a county councillor, as a senior county councillor, I think it would be helpful if he actually sat in on the discussions. But again, that's just ultimately just a choice for yourself and for Michael. But I just thought I'd make that point.
Okay, thank you. And if he's watching on YouTube, I'm sure he will have taken that on board. Could we invite Councillor Green to come back into the meeting before we go on to the next item, please?
Chair, Councillor Green should now be in the meeting.
Michael, are you with us?
I've just rejoined, Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That then takes us on to item 8, which is the Worden Hall progress report. Do we have Councillor Matthew Tomlinson with us?
Sorry, Chairman, you took me by surprise then.
We do.
You took me completely by surprise. I'm going to be honest and admit I wasn't even sat here, and then I heard you shout my name. Thank you.
You'll have to put your biscuit and your tea down now then and give us this progress report.
Okay, I will. Thank you, everybody. Obviously, both a lot has happened and yet not much has happened since I last appeared before the Scrutiny Committee. In fact, looking back at the minutes, the last time I appeared before the Scrutiny Committee was before the budget setting council meeting. So the funding for this project hadn't even been agreed. Obviously, I'm delighted that council did agree to the funding, and so that money is there. We did establish a working group of officers to take this forward in early March, and then things, not surprisingly, I guess, came to something of a crashing halt. I did discuss progress or lack of with Neil Anderson and Jonathan, and you'll see from the report that we decided we really did need to make progress, and that the best way to do that would be to appoint Purcell, who were the company who'd worked with us as part of the public consultation, drawing up the plans, and who know the building well. So we have now appointed that company, and they're now going to take us through all the technical work that needs to be done to a building of this nature, to prepare us for a planning application. Of course, with like many things, some disappointment that COVID is going to set us back some 3 or 4 months. And we talked about a planning application much earlier in the year than we're now talking about. And the report before you talks about this going to planning in December. So that's the progress that's been made. We have now got, as I say, an official consultant in place. They'll be doing the technical work that we simply don't have capacity to do in-house. And I look forward to a planning application coming forward. I think that's about it, Mr. Chairman, from me. I don't want to repeat. There's a lot of background stuff in the report, but members know this project well. But I do appreciate the opportunity to come to this committee and give an update. And I'm happy to answer or try and answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you for that. I think you've clarified that the project isn't on track with the original project plan, which is understandable. and probably how long is a piece of string is as good a question as when will Worden Hall be back in use. But at least we know there's a planning application coming forward in December. So with that planning application, is there any other progress we might see by our next meeting?
I doubt it, actually. I mean, unless the consultants are happy to give us an update on the work that they're doing. And maybe that's something I'd be more than happy to ask them to do that. It was me, after all, who insisted that Worden Hall be a standing item on scrutiny some time ago. And I don't see why we shouldn't continue to do that. I know Jonathan Nord's listening in, so maybe if Jonathan can make note of that request, and we'll ask the consultants to give us a regular update so that we can come back to the committee and say, this is the work that they've done, this is what's been completed. And I just see it's flashed up in the corner that Jonathan's raised his hand and wants to come in.
Right. Okay. Well, you've seen something I didn't. So, Jonathan, would you like to come in?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah. Just to confirm, we're happy to feed in what the consultant is actually up to. There's a lot of detailed studies that they need to be preparing, not least because it's a listed building in listed park. So there's a lot of technical work they need to do on that. Hot off the press, myself and Neil have been discussing procurement routes for when we get to the build phase on this as well today. So that's a piece of work that'll be running alongside the planning application in the event that planning permission is actually granted, so we can update the committee in terms of procurement process at future meetings as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Michael Green is chomping at the bit to come in.
I'm not so sure about that, Chairman, but I will come in.
Well, I was about to bring you in anyway, and then you indicated in the corner of my screen. So,
thank you. Nice to see you anyway, Councillor Tomlinson. Hope you're keeping well.
Yeah.
Could I just ask you, with regard to the appointments of the architects per cell, what was the original budget for their services, and what is now the forecast total cost of their services, including the extension to the contract?
Okay, so I mean, they're a bit more than architects. They are planning consultants with experience of the type of work that Jonathan alluded to. I'm not sure whether within the budget there was a specific budget for architects' work. If there was, I don't recall what that figure was. Maybe Jonathan is in a better place to help. But certainly the contract that we've appointed them to is around, is it £77,000 is a figure to do all the work that's needed to get this to planning. Jonathan, did we have an original estimate for that work? I'm presuming there was.
The original appointment was to obviously do the initial study on the building. That's gradually changed over time. So there's been, I think there's been some cabinet decisions to reappoint per cell, and then more recently to carry on to the plan application stage. I don't have the figures to hand, but I can certainly provide a note of the story of the per cell tender and contract.
Well, if you could provide that to Councillor Green and copy in committee members, it would be useful.
Yeah.
And Councillor Green, I believe you had another question? Or
no, it's been covered in Councillor Tomlinson's introduction. But thank you.
Okay, many thanks. Councillor Matt Trafford.
Thanks, Chair. On the report under the air quality implications, it mentions about the commitment to being carbon neutral. I was just sort of wondering, practically speaking, if there's any ideas floating around as to how we can sort of adhere to that rule and make sure that we're still combating climate change throughout this project. Thanks, Chair.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. I'm still struggling a bit with the protocols for this thing. Yeah, we do have a whole council commitment to be carbon neutral, and this will indeed be considered as part of the design, but not only the design, as part of the build as well. I mean, it would be naive of me to say that building this would be carbon neutral, because it won't be. You can't build a building and be carbon neutral. But what we have to do is make sure that the people we appoint to build this, and indeed Purcells, who are going to be going into the architectural work, are aware of our aspirations. So I think for me, on any project like this, it's about minimising the carbon footprint of it so that you can hopefully do work elsewhere so that we do come with a net carbon neutral figure. But you have to be honest when you're doing a project like this, it is not going to be, the project itself is not going to be carbon neutral. You just have to minimise it in every way that you can, look for innovative solutions to reduce carbon footprints. And the scale of the work that they're doing, notwithstanding the fact that it's a grade 2 listed building, but the scale of the work that we're doing means we will be able to look at interesting ways of reducing the carbon footprint of the building. And I mean, we'll make sure, Jonathan talked about the procurement. You'll recall it was part of our election manifesto that we want procurement wherever possible to be local, to employ local people. But the other thing, we are committed to reducing our carbon footprint, and that will indeed be a part of the procurement process as well.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any other questions here. Is there any other members of the committee who would like to put a question on this particular item? If not, that takes us to recommendations. Again, Darren, could you perhaps remind us of our recommendations?
Chair, some of the points that I picked up on during the discussion was that the committee thanks the Cabinet Member and Director for their update. The committee thanks the Cabinet Member for the offer of regular updates from the Council's consultants, Purcell. The committee welcomes a future update on the procurement process involved in the project. The committee asks for the cost information involved with the Council's consultants, Purcell, and the committee supports the commitment to reduce the carbon footprint of the building works. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Do we have anything in addition to that from any committee members? If not, can we agree those?
Agreed.
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 Thank you. I'll take that as agreed. So if I could thank Councillor Tomlinson for joining us, along with Jonathan Node, who I think is up again next. And that takes us to item 9, which is the scrutiny portfolio update, planning, regeneration and city deal. And if I could invite Councillor Bill Evans, the Cabinet Member for Planning, Regeneration and City Deal, and Jonathan Node, the Director of Planning and Property, to present this item and then answer any questions.
Right, thank you, Chair. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for the invitation. The idea of tonight's report is to give you an update of what we've been up to over the last 12 months. As you know, it's quite a large portfolio, and it makes a significant contribution to the council, the borough, the wider Central Lancs area and the county as a whole. Give an idea of some of the things that is covered in the portfolio: development management, planning policy, investment and skills. The list in the report. There are a number of other items that I'd like to mention. Prentice Factory, master plans for Leyland Bamber Bridge and Penwortham, the local plan, which I'll come on in detail shortly. We contribute to the corporate plan in a number of areas with a number of projects. We've also got input into the Leyland Town deal, which again I'll come into shortly. But let's kind of start off with development management. With development management process, all the planning applications, defence planning appeals, and undertakes planning enforcement investigations. The government give us targets for sorting planning applications out. For small applications, minor applications, it's 8 weeks, and for larger ones, it's 13 weeks. As you can see from the table there, the minor applications, we've got a success rate of 88.53, which is pretty good. We were one of the highest in Lancashire. and for major applications 91.3%, which is also very good. We've had a number of larger scale applications that we've had to deal with, like the Leyland test track, which we sorted in the last 12 months, and but also we've had we've also led on the defence of refusal of planning permission at Chainhouse Lane. That's gone to a public inquiry. The public inquiry was held on the 17th of June. The judge who heard it is very busy and said he'll be back to us in the next few weeks, and we're awaiting the result of that public inquiry. That won't be the end of it, as far as I'm aware. If the judge falls in our favour, then the applicant can appeal against the decision, or if he falls in the defence of the applicant, we can appeal against the decision. So there are other stages still to be heard. On planning policy, we're very heavily involved in the Central Lancashire Local Plan. As you know, every council has to develop a local plan. What the government have allowed us to do, they've allowed us, in partnership with Preston and Chorley, to do a Central Lancashire Local Plan. So we're all working together. We've just gone through the issues and options stage, which is the first stage of preparing the new local plan. What we do with we have a local plan working group that we alternate. One meeting I chair, another meeting Preston chairs, another meeting Chorley chairs, and then it comes back to me again. And we also offer the different venues as well. So, and we're working on the Central Lancs Joint Advisory Committee. On the issues and options stage, which I've just mentioned, the consultation finished on the 14th of February this year. At the close of the consultation, we had over 1,200 responses to the consultation online through Citizen Space and a few hundred written responses. We even got some from a youth questionnaire that we ran alongside the issues and options document. That generated an additional 593 responses from 11 to 21-year-olds, which is very encouraging. We're getting young people getting involved in their own local areas and what they want to see where. Investment and skills. We support traditional economic development function and providing support to businesses. We also forming an economic development policy, and we work with Lancashire leaders on the economic development theme. And we've also got the Apprentice Factory. The Apprentice Factory is a 5-year scheme. We finished phase one, which the phase one was to support South Ribble Council and develop our apprentices, but we're now extending it to phase two, which we're going out to external businesses and supporting them as well. And it's very successful. We're leading quite well on this. Building control. They're responsible for checking submitted drawings, specifications, the calculations, etc. It's a service that we charge for, and we compete with the private sector. But when we look at the applications that are coming in, we're about 2/3 of all builds are coming to us, which is very good. An excellent figure compared to other local authorities. Strategic housing. There's a report after this about our registered providers. We became a registered provider in February this year, so that now means the South Ribble Council can actually build its own houses and rent them out. We have a service that provides a registered provider forum, which has met 3 times in the year. It's run by South Ribble Council on behalf of Central Lancashire authorities. So we're keeping in touch with our registered providers. We have 10 registered providers in the borough, 9 of which are non-for-profit. But again, the next report has a table there telling you what their housing stock is and what they are, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, etc. where are we? Homelessness. We deal. The homelessness team deals with the people who are most in need. They work closely with other agencies such as social care, mental health, and with the team deals with the people who are most in need. They work. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened there. The cases the team deal with are very complex, and but they're very successful in what they do, and most of the outcomes are very positive. We're also involved with private sector housing, and this team run the council's disabled facilities. In the last 12 months, we've completed 87 applications, and we've got a current live caseload of a further 89, which are no doubt. That's not true now. This was at the writing of the report, so some of them will have been sorted. But we've been receiving a rating of very good or good from 99% of the applicants. We're also being involved in an item called the Leyland Town Deal. Last year, the government wrote to us and asked us to bid for £25 million to support Leyland. And we've put a team together from local businesses, Berries, Progress Housing, Runcher College, UCLAN, a lot of businesses from within Leyland. The government told us we had to support the scheme but not run it. So we've had a number of meetings now, and we've actually at the last meeting appointed a new chair, which is from one of the businesses within Leyland. She's chomping at the bit to get going with this. The last meeting that we had was a couple of weeks ago, and we had as many people turn up for that as we did at the first meeting. So there's still a lot of interest in this. We're actually working at putting our bid together now. The government have given us £164,000 already to do some work on this. So we're using that funding to work the bid up now, and we're hoping to have the bid into the government by October this year. City Deal is on hold at the moment because there's a number of negotiations going on. Lancashire County Council have approached us to take on more of the debt guarantee scheme, and we're in discussions with them about that, so that's just not going anywhere at the moment. And last but not least, the air quality. We have a climate emergency task group, and they've been engaged doing a consultation for us to input into the Central Lancs local plan that I mentioned earlier on, to assess all areas on air quality impact. So again, working with other people, we're doing other things. I think that's nearly everything I've covered. If anybody has any questions, obviously. Thanks, Chair.
Right, well, thank you. I think very thorough and detailed explanation as regarding your portfolio. You've outlined quite a lot there, but could I just ask what your key priorities have been since you took up the portfolio last May?
Right, I think the most major one is the local plan. There's a lot of work going to go into this. It's not due to be with us, Jonathan, I can't remember the date, but it's about 18 months, 2 years in the future. Again, it's a big issue because everything revolves around the local plan. Again, getting Preston Council, Chorley Council and South Ribbleborough Council to all agree issues is it's like herding cats. But no, we to be fair, we do work well together. We have had issues like the Chairhouse Lane application. That doesn't just have things for us to consider. It's got wider implications for Preston and Chorley and other authorities up and down the country. So I suppose that's probably the biggest. Master plans, the Leyland Master Plan, of course, I mentioned it earlier on, but didn't give you any detail about it. Leyland Master Plan's consultation has finished. We're working on the results of that, and that will feed into the Leyland Town deal. The government have told us, told our Member of Parliament, and she's told us that they've set aside £25 million for us on this. It's just that we have to put a decent bid together and get it in. So again, that, I suppose that's another important one. And of course, the planning, hitting the targets within the 8 weeks and the 13 weeks. And I suppose them are the main issues, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Chris Lomax.
As a member of the Cabinet, how do you measure the success of your portfolio?
Good question. But my portfolio is different to all the other Cabinet members. The other Cabinet members can work on ideas they come up with, and we've got targets that the Cabinet and the Council have set, and they're working on. Planning is slightly different. Our responsibility is making sure that we adhere to the national planning policy framework and whatever the government dishes out. And as you know, you'll have seen that planning policy nationally changes on a regular basis. So there's always something going on, and there's always something we have to look at and make sure we get it right. So really all I do is oversee that the council are doing it right.
Okay.
Thanks for that.
Councillor Colin Sharples.
I'm wondering whether I need to ask you this question, Bill, because you've told us what your key priorities have been since you took over the portfolio, and you've talked to us about your success measures. I'm going to put you on the spot a bit more now and ask you, what are your key priorities for your portfolio over the next 12 to 18 months? What's key looking ahead?
Right. Well, again, sorry to keep harping on about it, but the local plan is the main priority. We have to have one. Luckily, we've gone into partnership with two other authorities, and we're all working together, so we're sharing the officer workload, which is quite good. Probably looking after the bigger planning applications that are going to come in. We're expecting a number of large planning applications over the next 12 months, and hopefully we can work to sort them out. Other than what I mentioned earlier on, that's about it. Colin.
I think that's probably enough, actually, Bill. Good luck with all of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Colin Coulton.
Thank you, Chair. Can you tell us how COVID-19 has affected your portfolio?
Directly, there's not a lot of involvement for other than through the cabinet decisions. Jonathan, can you help on this one?
Yeah, certainly. I can come in there. Thanks, Councillor. I mean, COVID-19. I think it's really the investment and skills team is going to be really heavily involved in the recovery for the economy. That's a massive area. Since March, that all of that team has been working on delivering the government grants, and they've been very busy for a number of months getting that money to businesses. As we move out of COVID, I think there's a very long recovery phase for the economy, which is going to last 18 months to 2 years, I think. So the whole direction, the investment skills team probably needs to change in terms of the support it's providing to business, and that's something that's on the business support member working group that's meeting tomorrow, which Councillor Howarth will be familiar with. So that's a big area. I think probably home building is going to be a big issue. We don't know the full impacts of COVID-19 on the housing market as yet. There has been a slump in the housing market, not as bad as people have been predicting, but I think the general feeling is that come say that the autumn, the full effects on the economy and maybe the housing market will be seen then. So obviously the projects in terms of building affordable homes, etc., I think will become even more important moving forward. As Councillor Evans has mentioned, the local plan has got to pick up on the COVID responses as well. The world is a different place, I think, and the local plan will need to reflect that.
Are you happy with that, Colin?
Yes, thanks. Yeah,
Councillor Matt Campbell.
Thank you, Chair. Hello, Councillor Evans. You've touched on the Leyland Master Plan. Could you give us an update on the Penwitham and Bamber Bridge Master Plan as well, please?
Jonathan?
Yes, certainly. So all the activity at the moment is focused on Leyland in terms of that. So that's been out to consultation already and is very much embodied in the town deal. Now, a key action for this financial year is to start the work on the Penwitham Master Plan, particularly on the back of the Penwitham bypass opening and the impact of that on the main street. So we will be looking to commission urban design consultants to look at Penwitham, and the idea will be to work very closely with the town council on that particular master plan. We had hoped to be in a position where we'd contracted consultants on that by now, but obviously with the recent crisis, it's not that back slightly, but it is still the aim this financial year to make that appointment and for the work to commence. Bamber Bridge is scheduled for a future financial year, but Penwitham is next in line.
Right, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Michael Green, I believe you had a question on the town deal.
I did, Chairman, but before I raise that question, can I go back to the local plan? Sorry, I raised my hand and indicated to come in at that point. So sorry to take you backwards, Councillor Evans. But with regard to the local plan, obviously we're working in partnership with our neighbouring authorities of Preston and Chorley, and there are clear benefits to working in partnership in that way. However, any partnership brings with it challenges, and inevitably in that kind of working arrangement, there may come a point where Chorley and Preston take one particular point of view, and which might not be in the best interest of South Ribble. In that scenario, what would you do to resolve it, Councillor Evans?
Oh, thanks, Councillor Green, for your question. Thankfully, we've not come across a situation like this up to now. We've always managed to iron out the issues. The Chainhouse Lane issue did cause a bit of a problem because it affected Preston and Shore, like I said earlier on. Probably more than it would have affected. It does affect us, but again, we managed to overcome the issues we had on that. So I'm just thinking, I can't really answer your question until I find out what the issue is that we will have to overcome. Jonathan, I don't know whether you can comment.
Yeah, I think the latest example is the memorandum of understanding on housing numbers. I think it's fair to say before that got anywhere near cabinet or full council, there was a lot of negotiation behind the scenes on that to get in a position where all three authorities were comfortable with that, and it is something like housing numbers where there is the risk of the authorities disagreeing, but I think it's that negotiation both at officer level and through the joint advisory committee which resolve those issues before we get to cabinet and council decisions. It is that hard work behind the scenes which really resolves those kind of issues.
Okay.
Thanks, Chairman. If I can come back now regarding the town deal, but thanks for that reply. So obviously it's positive that we're making progress on the town deal with the assistance of the government funding, and I quite agree with you that that board should be private sector led, which is clearly important, that the local businesses in the wider Leyland area can shape that. However, in terms of public sector representation, who are the elected members that sit on that board from South Hibble and from neighbouring authorities and partners, please?
I sit on it. Jane Bell sits on it as chair of the Leyland Neighbourhood Forum. Cliff Hughes sits on it. I think that's it. We're a bit top. The group is a bit top heavy from South Ribble. We have a number of officers that support it as well. And again, the government were quite specific when they issued the rules at the beginning, saying we don't want it to be council led. We want it to be local led. So between Jonathan and myself, we and the leader at the first meeting, but we chaired the meetings and kept pestering to get other representation to come and chair it. And like I said, we're getting a lot of support. So really, there's 3 councillors is enough.
Jonathan, you've indicated you would like to come in there.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just to confirm that the membership, so the leader sits on the board, Councillor Evans, Councillor Cliff Hughes is a representative from the Conservative group, Councillor Jane Bell from Leyland Forum on there. There is also a representative from Farrington Parish Council sat on there. I think one of the questions was in terms of neighbouring authorities. There's no representative on there from neighbouring authorities. I know Darren's on the meeting and does the minutes and everything for that group. So I don't know if Darren is aware of anything that's missing.
I think you've included everyone there. Thanks, Jonathan.
Thanks, Darren.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any other questions, Councillor Green?
Yes, I do, Chairman. The obvious question then is, if we have a significant representation from the Borough Council and a representative from the Parish Council as well, why no representative from the County Council?
Don't know the answer to that. We were given when the government came to us, they give us a list of areas, you might say, that we should invite membership from, and we just worked through that list. So don't know, to be perfectly honest. Could you leave that one with me and we'll look into it?
Yeah, certainly, Councillor Evans. I mean, given that a lot of it was very much about infrastructure, the obvious place to go would appear to be the County Council, who are responsible for providing a lot of infrastructure. And to have that missing link isn't helpful in terms of taking the projects forward, whatever they may be. Well, if you can get back to me on that, that would be helpful.
Yeah, to be honest, a lot of the work in the master plan suggests road alterations and things like that, which obviously the County Council, would be involved in. So we'll have a look at that. I'll come back to you.
Thank you,
Chair. If it assists, we did write to the County Council when we're setting the board up for them to nominate who they'd like to attend, and it was an officer name that came back from the county. It's Andy Walker in the economic development team there who attends. From the county, but there is not a member rep on there. But we did write to the county formally to nominate who they wanted to attend, and the feedback we got was it was an officer. But I take the point that's been raised.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any other questions, Councillor Green?
Not on that specific point, but I might come back later if that's okay.
Yes, that's okay. Councillor Chris Lomax.
I believe my question has already been answered. As we've already been told, there's no update on the city deal and it's on hold at present.
Okay, do you have a question on planning policy?
Not I.
Right, okay. Well, page 33, paragraph 16, planning policy. What do you think the impact is of the government's policy of relaxing planning regulation on South Ribble? And maybe you could give us an update on what the latest position is.
Jonathan, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, certainly. I can come in there, Chair. So, as Councillor Evans mentioned in his introduction, was that planning policy shifts pretty regularly, and there's a lot of talk at the moment about changes that are emerging from central government. So, more recently, there's been changes in terms of allowing contractors on site to operate longer hours to try and keep the economy going and building going. Certainly, some contractors in South Ribble are doing this, and we're starting to get concerns from local residents because of that. So that's one recent example. There's obviously, I think, as part of the Chancellor's mini budget yesterday, there was talk of some new planning policy emerging within the next month, as well as some more proposals, and that's very much focused on home building. I think what we will see is a relaxation of permitted development rights, so people may well not need to come to us for planning permission for certain forms of development moving forward. So it's changes on a regular basis, and obviously the local plan and our local policies need to keep pace with that, because some of the changes may have local consequences, which may mean we need to do, say, a supplementary planning document to better inform those kind of positions.
Okay. Before I bring in Councillor Green, who's indicated he wishes to speak, are there any implications here for existing planning conditions, especially with the nighttime economy? I mean, we're now moving to drinking establishments opening again and perhaps spilling further out from the curtilage of their property. If there are planning conditions in place to prevent that, are those now going to be overruled, overturned?
No, not so much. There's a bill going through which is looking at licensing and planning, particularly to do with the evening economy. And that's very much focused on businesses being able to make use of public highway and pavements in terms of licensing to expand onto, to provide more outdoor space. Obviously, some of the businesses in the area do have their own private areas, and those are restricted by planning condition currently. My position as head of planning, I would say we need to continue to defend those conditions and ensure businesses are operating within the permitted hours, because those conditions were put on the use for good reason in the first place, particularly where businesses operate cheek by jowl with residential properties. So the emerging legislation doesn't change that condition, but we are receiving inquiries from businesses about varying those conditions. So the only way they can do that at present is through making a formal change of use, change of condition application to us.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Green.
Thanks, Chairman. Whilst we're talking about policies, Councillor Evans, there was recently an application at the Planning Committee, and I spoke on it in relation to an hot food takeaway potentially. And I raised the point of the Director of Public Health's advice regarding hot food takeaways and spatial planning. Now, that's not been adopted by South Ribble Borough Council, so I was just wondering whether the portfolio holder has had a chance to read through that advice, and whether or not he's minded to bring this forward at some point in the future. Obviously, we do have a clear issue with obesity in some wards in the borough, which is an issue that needs to be tackled. And whilst there may be a number of ways of tackling that issue, clearly planning policy is a key way of moving this forward. So I'm just interested in Councillor Evans' views on that. Thanks, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Yes, it's something we can look at. Again, as part of putting the local plan together. And the hot food takeaway that you mentioned, was it the one in Farrington at the last planning meeting?
Yes.
As far as I was aware, that was the lady, when she spoke, she told the committee that it was for healthy eating. She was going to provide healthy breakfasts and only be open from 7:30 in the morning till, was it 2 or 3 in the afternoon? I can't remember. But it was all healthy food that she wanted to provide. So, to be honest, I've been connected to planning at South Ribble for many years now, and I can't remember anybody ever coming along and saying that they want to provide a takeaway that provides healthy food. So it'd be interesting to see how that works. But to answer your question, yeah, it's something we can consider and include in the local plan.
If I can come back, Chairman. So
Yeah.
Thanks for that, and I'd welcome that being considered. And as I said, there might be a difference of views on it, but I think it's something that could add some weight to our policies. But with regard to that particular application, it wasn't that I was against the application per se. It was the fact that giving a planning permission, that permission then goes with the land, not with the applicant. So that lady, while she was very laudable in what she's hoping to do in the area and will be a very positive business, there's nothing to prevent her selling the business next week with the planning permission attached, and you get an hot food takeaway that is very different than what she is intending to open. So that was the concern. But if the policies could be looked at, that would be helpful.
Yeah, point taken. Thanks, Councillor Reid.
Yeah, I would concur with that as well. Councillor Matt Trafford, you had a question on homelessness.
Thank you, Chair. There's reference to the homelessness strategy, so I was just wondering if sort of go into a bit of detail on what that is, what we're hoping to achieve, how that operates. I don't know if you have any statistics to sort of say how that's doing, but just sort of a bit of detail into what that is, other than just trying to stop homelessness. Maybe a bit more specific info on that would be great. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Trafford. The team's been working on an homelessness strategy. I've got a meeting next week, I think, on it, so I don't have a lot of information at the moment, but once we've had our meeting with the officers and worked through where we're up to, can I come back to you? Yeah, I'll see about getting you a copy of where we're up to now as well.
So, okay, I've got a thumbs up there, so I think Councillor Trafford is satisfied with that. Councillor Michael Green again, I have here.
Thanks, Chairman. I was minded to ask a question about working with partner organisations, but I think that's already been covered by Councillor Evans.
Okay.
So I'll avoid that. But whilst I've got the floor, could I ask something else?
Yeah.
If I may. So what is the latest status regarding the proposed extra care facility, Councillor Evans? And how will its location and costs be integrated with both the Leyland Town Deal and the Leyland Master Plan?
Right, a number of us have been to have a look at Chorley's extra care facility. Absolutely tremendous, 65 apartments. It's a 3-storey building. It's just off Market Street, which is right on the town centre. Fantastic setup. They've got the carpets, different colours in different levels. So if somebody's got dementia, for argument's sake, they know if they've got to the floor that's got the red carpet, the poppy carpet, and they know they're on the right floor. Can't remember, there's a blue floor and a yellow floor, I think the other ones were. So it's really got into, some really well planned. So far, we've been looking at a variety of areas that we could put an extra care facility. I think there were 12 sites identified, and then our officers have scored them, and they've got it down to 2 or 3 sites that we're looking at the moment. But nothing's been determined yet. But again, one way or another, we probably work it into one of the master plans. Jonathan, do you have anything to add?
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, I mean the extra care project is one that's cross portfolio. So not only does it fall in Councillor Evans' area, it's also Councillor Titherington's, and obviously with it being an asset, it's Councillor Tomlinson as well. So it's quite a cross portfolio area rather than just the planning area. As Councillor Evans said, there's a lot of work had been undertaken in the last few months in terms of looking at sites within borough, and the current aim is that a report will be coming into cabinet in September to look at where that goes and to move that particular project forward.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Unfortunately, I've been watching Councillor Evans and Jonathan on the left of my screen, so I missed who raised their hand on the right of it. Is there anybody else who would like to come in at this point?
Colin.
Is that Councillor Colin Coulton you would like to come in?
Yes, please, yeah. Thank you. I'd just like to mention a question on Pickering's Farm. This is obviously a vital part of the delivery of our commitments to the local plan and to City Deal. Where are we with unlocking the land of Pickering's Farm? Have we made any progress?
It wouldn't be right for me to comment, to be honest, as a portfolio holder on this. What I can tell you is that at a planning committee meeting shortly, the master plan will be presented and the committee will vote on it. And then following that, there will be two other applications, one for the Crossborough Link Road and one for the application itself. And again, that's entirely up to planning committee. So other than that, I don't want to prejudice anything else that's going on at Pickering's Farm.
Okay, right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Finally then, if I could just ask a question. Is there anything the Scrutiny Committee can do to support your portfolio?
As much as you can.
Not to ask awkward questions, I suppose. But if there is anything, I mean, we are here to make constructive suggestions as well as ask pertinent questions. So if there is anything that you feel we can do to help or add, the Scrutiny Committee is here.
Right, thank you for that, Chair. Yeah, if you want to keep inviting me every 12 months to give you an update of what we've been up to in the previous 12 months, then yeah, great. I look forward to it. I was a bit worried about coming tonight, and it's not been as bad as I thought. So, thank you.
Our reputation precedes us.
Can I ask a question, David? Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, can I ask a question, David?
Yes. Please,
yes, it was just about the extra care facility that Councillor Bill Evans mentioned that they'd been to on a visit, and I think it might be advantageous to us as a Scrutiny Committee when we're able, due to the lockdown, to be able to visit the facility at some point. So could Councillor Evans arrange that for us, please?
I'm sure that can be arranged, especially when we've got the Chief Executive, who's also the Chief Executive at Chorley, who run the facility. So yeah, I'm sure we can do that.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. When we're able to
do that, Chair.
Thank you. Before I close this item, do we have any other questions at all? Any members? In which case, if I can thank you again, Darren, could you let us have the recommendations, please?
Thank you, Chair. Some of the comments and points that I've picked up that you might want to add to or change. That the committee thanks the Cabinet Member and Director for the portfolio update. The committee wishes the Cabinet Member well with his portfolio priorities over the next 12 to 18 months. The committee looks forward to progress being made on the master plans for Leyland, Penworth and Bamber Bridge. The committee asks that consideration be given to a planning policy on hot food takeaways in light of the Director of Public Health's advice. That an update on the homelessness strategy be provided to members. and the committee appreciates the offer of visiting the Chorley Extra Care Scheme. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have anything they wish to add to that or anything they wish to change? In which case, can we agree those?
Agreed.
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 Thank you.
Agreed.
If Councillor Evans and Jonathan Node would like to just stay where they are for the time being, because item 10 is the Registered Provider Housing Associations report. We brought this forward because we did have a request previously to scrutinise housing associations. So suggestions have been made that we invite housing associations to a future meeting. Members have indicated that they would like to invite Progress and Accent. So are there any other suggestions from members of who they would like to invite? And are there any questions to Councillor Evans and Jonathan Node on this particular subject? If there aren't, if we can accept then that we wish to invite Progress and Accent to a future meeting and put questions to them. And I think that effectively is the recommendation. So could we agree to that?
Chairman, could I just come in, please?
Yes, certainly.
I think it would add value if we could actually wait to invite the associations until such time as we can return to some level of normality and hold meetings back at the Civic Centre and invite the public. Because obviously there's several thousands of residents in South Ribble that are affected by the work of these associations, be it for the good or for the bad. So it would be wise to actually give them an opportunity to attend and put any questions that they may wish to raise. And that's facilitated far easier once we get back to holding proper meetings in a safe manner. But we're clearly not in a position where we're able to do that and invite all councillors and all members of the public, and might not be for some time. So whilst on scrutiny, we'd like to move things forward as quickly as possible and not introduce any delay. I think on this occasion, it might be wise just to hold off on that meeting just for a little while.
Yeah. Okay, do we have any
I'll
members
second that,
who...
Chair.
Right, well, clear, seconded. Do we have any members who may feel differently, or are we all happy to take that line?
Yeah.
Is that
Agreed.
I'm happy with that.
Agreed.
Yeah, agreed.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. Then the recommendation is that at a future date, when it is safe to do so, and when it is safe to invite the public to take part, we invite Progress and Accent to come before the committee. Okay, thank you. That now takes us on to item 11, which is scrutiny matters and the Lancashire County Council Health Scrutiny Committee update. I did remotely attend the last meeting of the Health Scrutiny Committee. It was difficult. We had two representatives from the NHS there who were giving us an update mainly on the situation with COVID. I couldn't see who was speaking, although I could hear them. But one of my main concerns was that while we were able to pose questions on the COVID situation, one of my main concerns was what was not on the agenda, as opposed to the small agenda that we did have. Because if you recall, the scrutiny matter regarding Chorley and South Ribble Hospital was put back because of the general election. It's subsequently been put back because of COVID itself, and we're no further forward and we're no nearer getting any answers. So that is a cause for concern. In terms of what was put to us, it was suggested that they are expecting a second spike sometime later in the year. We all live in hope that that won't happen, and we all hopefully will continue to take precautions to make sure it doesn't. But that was generally the content of that meeting. 11B is meetings and training attended by scrutiny committee members. I don't believe that there has actually been any, unless anybody would like to speak up now. In which case that takes us to 11C, which is the Scrutiny Review Task Group, Commercialisation and Property Investments. I can report that the task group influenced the scope for the strategic review of assets and met with relevant officers. The task group felt it's completed its work as it did not wish to duplicate and would consider revisiting this topic in the future. If members are happy with that, can we agree that that is the line taken?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Agreed.
And finally, 11D, our forward plan. The committee might also like to consider the topic areas to consider for the remaining of the year. Health inequalities has been suggested for the Scrutiny Committee, and I believe that members have indicated that they would like to set up a task group to consider that. Could I invite both the Labour and Conservative groups to put forward their nominations to Darren, and then we can arrange a first meeting of that task group at an early opportunity. So if each of the members of those two groups could take that away, and unless there is anything else, that brings us to the end of the meeting. So does anybody have anything else they would like to bring forward?
Chair, could I just check how many members you would like on the Health and Equalities Task Group? Usually we would go for a group of 5 or 6.
Well, my understanding was it was 5, but unless anybody has a different suggestion to that. So invariably it's myself as chair and 2 from each of the other 2 groups, if that's agreeable.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And if we could have nominations forwarded to Darren, and we will put the first meeting of that together. So if I could thank you all for your attendance, thank you for the guests that have been, thank the guests that have been to us and for their presentations, and bring the meeting to a close.
Thank you. And good night.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Good
much.
night.
Thanks. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Good night.
Good
night.
And in good time before the
Good night.
kick-off.